So Sean Theriault, you're a congressional scholar here at the University of Texas, and you've spent a lot of time in recent years researching Newt Gingrich's history as a congressman. Tell us a little bit about how his history as a congressman has shaped his identity as a presidential candidate.
Right. So the first thing that you'll learn about Newt Gingrich when you start studying him is the guy can read a situation better than anyone he knows. So he comes into the House, 1978. Republicans are a huge minority. And he sees the situation and he says, all right, in order for us to become a majority party, we're going to have to do these 3 or 4 things. And we're just going to keep hammering and hammering them. And so that was, low taxes and small government. And also tear down the Democrats so that he could rebuild the House in his own image. And so those same themes basically still apply with his presidential campaign, but what's even more important is he can look at the race, see who else is in it, and figure out where his daylight is going to come from, and then figure out a way to message it so that he can ultimately become a credible presidential candidate.
So for all the talk about issues and ideology in this election, one big piece of it for candidate Gingrich is still the same as before. It's this notion of the model of attack and strategy, right?
That's right. He's a political animal, and he knows just as if he didn't take down the Democrats that he was never going to become Speaker of the House, he knows that if he doesn't take down Mitt Romney, then he's never going to become the Republican presidential nominee.
Now, in some ways, South Carolina was a advantageous ground for Gingrich to do that, to campaign aggressively. South Carolina has a history of this kind of politics. We're now entering what's for some people would say is the make or break stage for Mitt Romney. How does Gingrich go into this, and what are the prospects for Florida now?
Yeah, it's really interesting because Florida is a state where we think it takes a lot more money, takes a lot more ground game, takes a lot more people on the ground, networks working for you. And Mitt Romney has been planning this for 5 years, right? He has the same people that were on the ground 4 years ago, and he's been campaigning for president pretty actively the last 2 years. And Newt is relatively new. Doesn't have as much money, doesn't have as many people on the ground, but yet we have 2 debates this week. And so Newt is going to be able to show the best possible face that he has to not only the people in Florida, but the people around the country who are tuning into those debates.
Now, Florida is much more heterogeneous than South Carolina, New Hampshire, Iowa. Where would you expect Newt is stronger? Where do you expect he's weaker? Where does Romney play the same way? What are their relative strengths and weaknesses?
Right, so I think that we're going to see this race break down the same way that we've seen it break down in South Carolina and even before, in that Mitt Romney is going to have the establishment Republicans, the people who care most about winning the election in November, and then Newt Gingrich is going to have the hardcore conservatives and the people that want to fall in love with the candidate, right? The people whose heart starts beating faster when they see someone on TV. That's never going to be Mitt Romney, but that could be Newt Gingrich. And so he's going to have the opportunity this week to represent himself to the people of Florida and, like I say, around the nation.
So as we move into Florida and beyond, then what's your sense of where the race is and where it might go?
Yeah, it's hard because you have the political acumen and the potential of falling in love with Newt Gingrich on the Gingrich side, but you have the network and you have the money and you have the long-term plans that Mitt Romney has been developing for 2 or 3 years. And so how that compares and contrasts, we'll have to see how it plays out over the next couple of months. But what we know about the Republican Party, certainly since 2010, is that they want to get passionate about something. And they're never going to be passionate about Mitt Romney.